All right, welcome to the next lesson. This is one of the crucial lessons in this class, sports gambling. Sports gambling is a really big industry, and it has a lot of different rules and different gameplay from anything we've talked about so far in this class. So it's really a unique concept in the gambling world. So what we're going to be doing in this first video is really just getting our feet wet, talking about betting basics, thinking about payout odds and how they're expressed. So for payout odds, we've talked about this now in two different ways, and we will be adding a third. So for example, you might make a bet that is 2-1. Another way to express that would be 3-4-1. And in sports betting, they will express this typically as plus 200. And if you're playing in Europe, they actually even have a different route even beyond that. So we need to understand where this comes from, and we need to figure out how to interpret these values. Okay? So let's start out with the easier way to think about this. So let's think about a bet that is unlikely to win. When you're thinking about like just two teams playing against each other, so Hawks versus Lakers or something, we might call the Hawks the underdog in terms of winning the game. But when it comes to betting, keep in mind we're thinking about the underdog in terms of the bet. For two teams that play against each other, the worst team will be the underdog if you're just picking who's going to win, but that's not the only bets available. A bet that's unlikely to win is not always the underdog either, so if you think about it, if you're betting on who's going to win the Masters, the favorite might be, I don't know if it's Brooks Koepka or something. Maybe he's 12-1 to win. He's the favorite, but he's still unlikely to win. So that term underdog doesn't so much apply. All right. But let's just start off by thinking about scenarios where a team is unlikely to win. Okay. So let's say that you look at some gambling odds, and you see that, for example, the Braves are plus 120 to win the game. All right, we need to understand what that plus 120 means. We'll get to some of the vernacular later on, but this might be called a money line bet, where you're betting who's going to win the game. So Braves plus 120, the way to interpret this is that if you bet $100, you will earn a $120 net pay if your bet is successful. So if you bet $100 and win, you'll get a $120 net pay or profit. And if you lose, of course, you lose the $100. Okay? So that's how this works for the favorite. We need to understand how to turn this into probabilities. Okay? So we want to convert this to probabilities. And this is just a formula you'll need to know. You guys are lucky now because you're not having to memorize formulas, but you need to apply this formula in the quiz to convert this to probability. The implied probability for the underdog is 100 divided by 100 plus the payout odds. Okay? Pretty simple formula. 100 divided by 100 plus the payout odds, where that plus 120 refers to the payout odds. So this would come out to 100 divided by 100 plus 120, which is 100 divided by 220, or 45.45%. Okay? We've effectively converted this payout into what we would call an implied probability. So based on the odds that the Braves have of winning this game, that suggests that the Braves have about a 45% chance. Okay? And what's really nice about sports betting, we're going to talk about this I think in the last week, but what's cool about sports betting is you get a chance to see what's likely to happen without having to conduct a study or something. It creates its own experiment. Sports betting creates its own predictions. So, if you look at the stock market and the price of Amazon stock is $200 a share, that suggests that you can predict how much Amazon is worth, right? Same deal here, all right? this payout that the Braves have is based on what the public is predicting will happen. If people really think the Braves are going to win, the odds will adjust. So this 45% chance is a really good estimate of actual probability. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, and we'll think about some of the cases where it does a pretty poor job of estimating the future. But it turns out it's a good estimate, okay? And when I'm thinking about, who's going to win a game, if I'm thinking about, what chances my team have of reaching the playoffs, I look at the gambling odds because I trust that way more than some analyst, right? If there's some analyst writing about will the Hawks make the playoff, that's one person. That's one person's opinion, okay? And they're trying to get views. They're trying to get clicks, right? They're trying to basically be as basically as interesting as possible, which a lot of times means taking these kind of takes that aren't necessarily predictive of even their own beliefs, right? But this is not one person's opinion that drives this probability. It's collectively all of the gamblers out there have made bets driving this probability to what it predicts now, okay? So it's a very useful thing to think about. So that's what we'll do for an underdog. That's pretty straightforward, I think. Students don't usually have much of a problem with that. It's the favorite where things look especially strange. So let's think about a bet that is likely to win. So this would be the favorite, okay? A bet that is likely to win or the favorite. So let's say the Falcons are playing at home against the Panthers, and the Falcons are minus 200, okay? Anytime you see a minus, that means the casino or sportsbook is going to pay you less than your bet. All right, so if you bet 50 bucks and you see a little negative sign right here, if you win, your profit's going to be less than $50, okay? So in this case, this minus 200, we need to understand how to interpret it. And what this means is that you must bet $200 to win $100 net pay. Okay? So anytime you see a negative, it's telling you how much you have to gamble in order to earn a $100 profit. And that's just the way this is set up. There's different ways to think about it. There's different ways, in Europe I mentioned, they do it differently. But this is how it's done in the U.S. And it's kind of confusing, all right? It's kind of confusing. So if you see a minus 200, that's how much you must bet in order to make a $100 profit. This means that the formula that we use is different when we're solving for the implied probability for a favorite or a team or bet that's likely to win. So the formula you're going to use here is you take the absolute value of the payout odds take the absolute value of the payout odds and divide that by 100 plus the payout odds. And again, this is going to be easy for you guys because you can just write these formulas down, keep them in your notes when you take the quiz. It should be pretty simple. Okay? So payout odds here, in this case, take away the negative because we're taking the absolute value. Right? I'm just filling in the rest of this formula here. And so this comes out to a 2/3 or 67% chance of the Falcons winning. So that's basically how you're going to see these bets lined up when you go to an American website or American casino. They're typically going to set it up in these plus and negative values. And if you don't know how to interpret those, you're going to be very confused when you try to make a wager.